Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of Inside Out. I would like to thank all of you who joined us last week and also for the fantastic feedback and appreciation. This episode is going to be streamed live both on Facebook and YouTube on my YouTube channel, that is Inside Out with Raman. I would like to request all of you on YouTube to put up your comments and also to subscribe once you finish watching this episode. Tonight's guest is a man who started off as a printer and then went into journalism, writing about tennis. He encouraged his daughter at the age of 6 to take up tennis. The girl made rapid progress, which forced him to don multiple roles. He was the cliched friend, philosopher, right? Apart from juggling with the roles of coach and manager. Under his guidance, the girl made rapid progress and went on to become an icon in women's tennis. Yes, I'm referring to Sania Mirza, and it's a matter of pride for all of us. She's from this neck of the woods. The father and daughter journey has been a long one. It has had its share of success and strife, triumph and tribulations, but all the same, it has been a fabulous one. To reveal more about the journey and also to give a secret as to what it takes to don various roles and to parent a sports person, I have the man himself as Imran Mirza, the man behind Sania Mirza's success. It's my pleasure to present Imran Mirza to all of you. Welcome, Imran. It's
Hi, Raman.
fantastic to have you on the show.
Lovely to be here.
Yeah, starting off, your connect with sport has always been there from your younger days. Your relative Ghulam Ahmad was a fantastic off spinner and a great star in his days. And then Asif Iqbal is also related to you. And you also been a very enthusiastic cricketer and tennis player. So that way, the connect to sport has always been there.
Absolutely. I think it was a way of life as far as our family was concerned. Someone had to play a sport and be involved with sport, and cricket happened to be the most popular one in our family. We did follow tennis a little bit. I played a bit of tennis too in my college days, but not at a very high level. So when Sania actually was old enough to start a sport, which was a natural thing to do, I preferred tennis, which was my second love after cricket. I probably didn't know that 28 years down the road, there would be a gentleman called W.V. Raman taking care of the women's cricket in India. Otherwise, she might have got into into cricket instead of tennis.
I
But
would,
I thought,
I didn't know 28 months prior to this that I would be taking care of the Indian women's team myself.
yeah, but for some reason, I thought that cricket was not a game for girls, and I preferred tennis. And that's what she started to play at the age of 6.5, and the rest is history.
Yeah, I can imagine because the options were limited then, and cricket was not that appealing then for especially for girls. Now, to just give us an idea of what it was like then when she started and when you put her into tennis, what was the kind of infrastructure that was available? What were the training methods and what was the level of coaching? Just to, give us an idea of what it was.
Well, they used to play on cow dung courts at that time, and finding a hard court was almost virtually impossible. And I think at that point of time in Hyderabad, there were about 2 hard courts, one of them at a gentleman's house. And we had to take a very special permission to go and practice on that court. And he would normally be there at 7 o'clock for a 7:15 hit, and he would probably get up at about 8:30 or 9, and we would be hanging around there to get a chance to play on his court. So those were the infrastructure was non-existent, if I may say so. And
Yeah, now, Sania getting into tennis, was it her choice or was it something that you nudged her into?
well, when she started out, it was definitely not about making it really big. It was about enjoying sport, and that's the way we've always played sport in our family, whether it's cricket or tennis or any other thing. And it was, I think, sport is something that teaches you so much in life about winning and losing, and I think it is life in a very small world that you learn to understand and then try and use it in your life. And she started off to enjoy the sport, and on the first or second day, I got a call from her coach in the club where she started off with her mother, saying that you have to come and watch her, sir. She is absolutely unbelievable. And I really thought that that was exaggerating. And for 6 months, I didn't bother to go to the tennis court, very frankly. And 6 months later, when I actually went and saw her for the first time, I did see something very special in her. And I think I did have some talent to understand what sport was about. And that's the time when I decided that we needed to encourage her. And she went from one stride to another.
Yeah, you learned a lot about tennis and the various intricacies of tennis when you were covering tennis as a journalist. Now, later on, with the passage of time, you started coaching Sania. So, does it speak of your self-confidence about the knowledge you gained, or was it something necessitated by the financial constraints?
Both, actually. Actually, I think I always believed that I had a lot of understanding of ball games, whether it was cricket or tennis. I may not have played that well, but I understood the game. I probably would have made a better captain than a player in both the sports. And I had the confidence that I could understand and imbibe the required talent that she needed. And that's how it went about. And it was also about affordability. Like it was tough times for sure. We were not able to afford professional coaches. And apart from that, finding professional coaches who knew enough about the sport in India was also another thing altogether. And affording a foreign coach at that point of time was virtually impossible.
Okay, what was it for you? What was it like for you in the sense you had to wake up early, take the physical kind of effort that you had to put in? Because if you show a little bit of laziness, the kid won't be motivated enough as well. You had a big responsibility along those lines.
Well, I can tell you that for the last 28 years, tennis has been the absolute core around which our whole family has revolved. The whole family has really stepped in. And if Sania has made it, it's Team Sania that has won. And that includes my wife, it includes my younger daughter, and includes a lot of other people as well. So it is as the father, I was probably the captain of the ship, and we had to see that it sailed properly, and we had to see that whatever problems came our way, we had to overcome them, and that was my job basically. But I think the one thing I was very particular about right from day one was that there should be absolutely no pressure whatsoever on Sania as far as winning matches and going to the top of the game was concerned. It was always about enjoyment. And as someone coming from a sporting family, I understood that parental pressure can be a very serious thing and that can destroy a person. And that's something that I eliminated from her game. That's something that people, were surprised that under pressure, Sania always came up firing. And I think that that's probably the biggest role that I have played in her career. It was, eliminating any kind of pressure under pressure cooker situations.
I assure you that was the right way to go about it. Now, let's talk about the financial part of it. It is not a cheap sport, tennis, at no point in time.
Well, you could say, there was a point in time when the requirement for keeping her afloat on the tennis circuit was about 50 lakhs a year, and I was earning about 10,000 a month. So it took a lot of sacrifice. We needed to find sponsors. We needed to listen to what the sponsors said, which was not easy. When they were paying someone who had not yet made it big, they were expected a lot out of that. And we went through difficult times. But the one thing that me and my wife decided was that what had to be done had to be done. And we saw to it that we managed to get everything sorted before it fizzled out.
Now comes the interesting question. Did Sania ever think of going away from tennis in the early teens? I remember talking to an icon's father some years ago, and he was telling me that he had also organized coaching on credit. And this boy suddenly at 16, 17 says he wants to go to tennis because he fell in love with somebody. Did Sania ever think, that she has to go from tennis?
You will be surprised that I had always kept the doors open for her, that any day she didn't enjoy the game, she could just walk away from the sport. It was never about playing for us or for anybody else. It was playing for herself and for enjoyment. That's what sport is all about. That's something that I've learned all my life. That's something I believed in very, very strongly.
Yeah,
So
now interestingly, Interesting enough, you said, you never put pressure on Sania, that victory was the most important thing. Now, here comes a very interesting question. Now, was she inherently ambitious, or was it something that competitiveness in her, came in gradually as she started winning in the junior circuit?
No, she was always somebody who needed to be first convinced that she could do something. Once she was convinced that she could do that, there would be no holds kept. She would just go after it like a professional, even as a teenager. And that's something that was very special to her. Once she decided that she was going to achieve something, she would make sure, and she was ready to go the extra mile for that.
Like she started off a professional circuit, when she was very young. She could have continued a couple more years in the junior circuit, but the start was not great. What exactly was going on through your minds, both yours and Sania's then?
The thing was that we always made her play in an age group that was ahead of her. Like when she was 12, she won the national under 14 and 16 titles on the same day. So I realized very early that you had to stay ahead of the competition nationally in order to compete internationally. And we saw to it that she played in an age group that was ahead of her. And when she was 16 and she had already won the junior Wimbledon, we decided that it was time to move on. And even though there were a lot of coaches who wanted her to win a couple more Grand Slams, maybe at the junior level. But we thought an additional 1 or 2 years playing professionally would be of help to her, because you don't get that kind of competition out here in India, and you improve the most when you're playing against those top level players in the international level, and that gave her an extra year or two for her to develop as a tennis player professionally.
Don't get upset with me with the next question that I'm going to ask you. Did at any stage the return on investment ever sort of strike you? Not a great start to the professional circuit. It was probably at the crossroads in a way. Did it ever occur to you? Because I've seen this happen in a lot of cases in different sports. It's fair enough. Parents spend a lot of time, put in a lot of effort, spend a lot of money. At some stage, the return on investment is a consideration.
Absolutely not in our case, because for us, sport is life for us, and sport is very important to us. And just her playing and winning the under 12 girls, even the doubles title, was big news for us and really satisfying for us. And we really enjoyed the fact that she was enjoying herself, doing well at whatever level she was playing. And as long as we could afford it, as long as we could keep the money coming in, she was never going to stop for that reason. Unless, of course, she stopped enjoying the sport, that the doors were always open. Like I told her, she could have walked away anytime she liked.
At what stage did you learn to compartmentalize your thought process as a parent and as a coach?
That's a difficult thing to say, because the fact is that normally in normal conditions, when a parent's job ends, that's when the coach's job starts off, and it's vice versa. But when you're chipping in as both the coach and the parent, or especially on tour, it's more than a 24-hour day for you. There's never an end to the day. You have to ensure that she eats on time, she gets the right kind of food on time, she sleeps on time, is trained properly, she gets enough physical fitness. You have to make sure about the hotel accommodation to the next place if she loses here, or make travel arrangements. You have to be the psychiatrist who tries to help her if she loses a match and is in a bad mood. So all these things put together, it was a big learning process for us as well, me and my wife. And we never realized, probably if we had known the kind of stuff that goes into making a professional tennis player, we might never have even got into it. But
I was going to come to the next element. Like, what is it to adjust emotionally and to face the challenges as a parent and a coach as well? Because you tend to think differently as a father, and you tend to think differently as a coach.
Yeah, the thing is, the one thing we decided was that we should never allow our negative emotions to ever seep into Sania, the player. And we would, in fact, when I was coaching, when I was sitting in the player's box, I would always wear dark glasses so that she never saw my eyes, because the lips would be smiling, my mouth would be smiling, but the eyes would probably give me away that it was disappointing for me. So we made sure that she never felt any kind of disappointment. Even when he did feel, there was always a smile, whether she won or lost. We always celebrated as a junior when she lost matches, because that was a time when we had another day where she was doing nothing the next day. So we would celebrate, go out for dinner, and have a good time. And this is probably where today's parents, I found that, that they're putting too much pressure. And I find that and agonizing, because as a coach, when I watch some of the kids, getting upset about the fact that their parents are upset about their losses, or they're not giving. For me, it was never about winning. It was about giving your best shot. And I think the only time I have ever been a little bit harsh on Sania was when she was a junior, and I thought she did not give her best. That was about it. But a loss was never something to review about.
The media plays an important role in any sports person's career, be it an individual sport or a team sport. Now, you being one of the journalists, was it an advantage or a disadvantage?
Well, the biggest disadvantage, as far as I was concerned, was that, Sania was probably just when the electronic media was making its presence felt in the country. That's the time Sania was making her presence felt on the tennis courts. And I just felt that the electronic media did not know how to handle a top-level sporting icon who happened to be a woman, who happened to be reasonably decent-looking, who happened to know how to talk, who happened to know how to give it back, and also a performer. And she had to pay a price for that. And we were learning as well. And I think the electronic media themselves were learning at that point of time, because the other women sporting icons who came after Sania probably didn't suffer the way Sania did. But as a journalist, I did have an advantage, and I did manage to salvage some of the problems that came my way.
Thank you for being frank on that. Now, with Sania going from strength to strength, your responsibilities would have increased by the day, in fact. Having to look after our training regimen, our technical side of it, the endorsements coming in, the media relations. Now, it was very difficult for somebody to handle all that and handle it well enough.
Like I said, it was always Team Sania that was performing. If Sania won on the tennis court, it was Team Sania, with my wife, my younger daughter too, who sacrificed a lot as in terms of time. She was almost a single parent child, because one of us was always traveling. So in that sense, we had actually allocated different jobs to ourselves. My wife would take care of our hotel accommodation, our flight booking. She happened to be a travel agent, so that helped out. I took care of the tennis aspect. I was initially in the junior days, when we had to keep the kitchen fires burning, it was my wife who was traveling with Sania. And then once she turned professional, that's when I started traveling. I had to give up my profession and started traveling with her. So those were the adjustments we made. Like I said, it had to be whatever.
Yeah, later on, you roped in the help of Tony Roach, Bob Brett, and Gromel. And you would have learned a lot traveling with Sania and interacting with those great guys who took coaching once they finished playing tennis.
Absolutely. We were not able to afford these top-level coaches for a long time. In fact, when Tony Roche was working with Sania, he was also working with Roger Federer at that time, and had the opportunity to mingle with Roger as well at that early stage of Sania's career. And the one good thing that I saw in these foreign coaches, who were also top-level coaches, was that they were not at all hesitant to give away knowledge that they had. And they would actually take me on the court. They realized that I couldn't afford them for more than 2, 3, 4 weeks at a time. And they would actually explain to me what I needed to. And that knowledge still remains with me. And I still use it today, when I've been working with Sania almost single-handedly since 2012.
How did controversy affect you, or Sania for that matter? Because for no fault of Sania, controversies seem to chase her now and then.
Yeah, and my wife and I would form a cocoon around Sania so that it never reached her. We would try to keep her away from it as far as possible. But it did affect us, no doubt about it. We actually, that was probably one point when we thought we might have bungled by getting her into professional tennis. The pressures were high. It was difficult times for us, no doubt about it. But it was the tennis and Sania's performances that kept us going.
Would you attribute those controversies to troublemongers or jealousy of some in the fraternity, or what triggered those controversies? Because you would never come across Sania ever make outlandish statements or being in the face or whatever.
Like I told you, the electronic media particularly was still learning at that point of time. They were new in India, and I think they didn't understand the way they needed to treat a performer who was performing for the country, Also, she was someone who would speak her mind out, and that was probably didn't go down well with some of the professional journalists. And she had to pay a price for that, which is fair enough. Later on, I've had very good relations with the media. But I think one thing I need to point out is that we never had any problems with the sporting media. It was once she became big enough for the sporting media, and then it was the page three media that came in. That's when we had the problems, and that's when we had to back off a little bit.
Her singles career was looking good, and she was making rapid strides. And then comes the wrist injury in 2013. That must have been heart-wrenching, wasn't it?
Well, yes, and it wasn't easy to get Sania to give up singles, believe me, because she always believed she had it in her to be a top 10 player. But once she had the surgery, she had 3 surgeries. Actually, she was operated on both the knees as well as the wrist, and the wrist really was the most damaging one of the 3. And I realized then that she still had the potential to maybe play in the top 100 of the world, which was very good, because considering the fact that she's the only Indian woman ever in the last 125 years to have even got into the top 100. But my point of view was that her best ranking of 27 would be something that would be hard to emulate for her as well after the surgery. And I've always believed that as a doubles player, you won't believe this, but I said this almost 10 years before she actually became a superstar in doubles. I told this to the media that when they asked me that whether they thought that she could be a top 5 player or number 1 player of the world at singles, I said, I don't think so, but I do believe that she has the potential to be number 1 in the world in doubles. I said this 10 years before she actually became number 1 in the world. So that's when I decided that, if she was not going to better her 27 mark, it might be better for her to try and become number 1 in the world in doubles, which was the only way to go by skipping the singles.
You've been proved right, and in a way, looking back now, you would probably see that wrist injury which forced her to get into doubles as a blessing in disguise, would you?
Well, if she hadn't had that, I think she could have been a top 10 player in singles. I believe she had the potential if she did not have the three major injuries that she had and the 3 surgeries. So that is something that you rue a little bit. But then I believe in destiny, and I think she was destined to be number 1 in the world in doubles.
Now, injuries can always be daunting. It can always, test you in many ways, especially mentally. And your patience is really tested when somebody has an injury. Now, for the entire Sania team, it could have been really sort of frustrating, wasn't it? Injuries at the wrong time. Yes, of course, injuries are part and parcel of the sports person's career, but still, when it happens, it's very, very difficult. It's almost traumatic for the team that is handling the sports person.
Yeah, but I agree with you. But then again, like I said, the team decided that the dejection would never show up to Sania, and we were the one who we were trying our best to try and get her back. And she had a great support staff in my family, and some of the coaches that she worked, some of the trainers she worked with. And once she was convinced that she had the ability to make a comeback, I think she decided, okay, now I have to give it a shot. And once she decides something, I've known her as a personality. She will give it her all, and that's what she did, and that's what helped her come back.
Now, let's talk about Imran, the coach, Sania, the player. What were the discussions like? Was she absolutely receptive, or there would be a lot of arguments? You had to convince her. How did that work?
Raman, you would know you've been coaching women, so it's never easy coaching a woman. You have to work on it. So I would time myself. Being a parent, I had the advantage that I could time myself. After a bad loss, that's never the time to speak to a woman. You wait it out. We wouldn't even talk about the match, and maybe 2 days down the road at breakfast, we would discuss when she was more amenable to listening to what you were saying. There's no point in saying something if it's not going to be absorbed. And that was something I was very, very sensitive about. And I understood my daughter better than anyone else.
Yeah, I was going to come to that, because while the dual role of parent coach can be difficult, but you would definitely have the advantage as a parent in as so far as communication is concerned.
Absolutely. She had so much faith in me, and still does, that even when the topmost coaches of the world were talking to her, she would discuss it with me and tell me to go and talk to them and maybe get back to her in a language that she understood better. So she had that faith, and even when she had traveling coaches instead of me, when I was still I hadn't taken over completely as the coach. The coaches would go and try and look at the next potential opponent just to try and study their game. She was never satisfied with that until I went and took a look at the opponent. She had that faith, and I probably had an eye. I've been told by a lot of coaches on tour that while Sania was given the talent to perform at the highest level, she was also given a father who understood the game as well as you did.
Yeah, the thing is that incidentally, she achieved a lot when you again reverted back to coaching her full time. What would you attribute that to? Better rapport as a father and a daughter, or it's just that you knew her game better, or she thought that you could be the best guide and you knew her game better as well?
Yeah, I think it took a little while for that trust to kick in, and it did. When it did, then she had complete faith, and that's what actually helped her. But let me tell you that the kind of phenomenal talent that she has been gifted with, that is something that actually carried her apart from everything else. Of course, it needed to be nurtured, and probably I was there to help her with that. But when she started out in 2005, I remember a top level coach, Sven Gronefeld, who later went on to coach Maria Sharapova and also became a very dear friend of mine today. He came up to me in 2005. I didn't know him then. And he said, Imran, there is something I need to speak to you about. And I said, yeah. And he said, I watched your daughter play, and there are a few technical flaws in her game, no doubt about it. She hasn't been taught the right things. There are a few things that can be modified for sure. But he said, I've been on the circuit for 20 years, and in 20 years, I've never seen a raw talent of the kind that she has shown over here. And that's something that stayed with me, and that's the talent that she had. You needed a talent of that magnitude to break out of the non-existent system that we have in India, or had in India at that point of time. It's marginally better today, but still, it's a long way to go.
Yeah, that's exactly what makes her achievement fantastic, because when she started off, as you said, there's not much of infrastructure, and there were a lot of challenges. Now the thing is that Sanya is an icon now. Over the years, could you really ever enjoy her triumphs, either as a parent or as a coach? Because you had to exercise some restraint, isn't it?
I didn't get that question. Can you just repeat that?
No, I said over the years, you could not have really sort of enjoyed the success either as a parent or as a coach, because you had to show some restraint, because you can't get carried away.
Yeah, Raman, the thing is, whether we showed it or not, the fact was just watching her play at the highest level, whether she was winning or losing, we enjoyed the struggle as well. It wasn't just about winning. It was about being there, at a level where no one had ever imagined. I remember when she started out playing tennis in India, one of the coaches came up to me and said, you have to prepare for the day, sir, when she's going to be the under 14 state ranking champion. So that was as far as our coaches could think at that point of time. So to have gone on to win Wimbledon, and whether even if she lost a final here and there, it was disappointing, yes, but it was something that we are thrilled to be there.
Sanya is no doubt an icon, a lot of Grand Slam events winner. But now let the parent come out of it. I want you to answer as a coach. If she were to have improved on something with respect to her tennis, what would that be?
Without a doubt, I will say her serve, because when she came onto the scene, she had an amazing forehand. It was a God gift. It was unbelievable, the forehand that she played even at an early stage of her career. Her backhand was iffy. Her physical fitness level was poor. Her first serve was weak, and second serve was barely existent. Actually, she won Junior Wimbledon. She won Junior Wimbledon with that. And it was the forehand that was something quite, a gift to her from God, I believe. That was something. So the serve would be something. There was a technical fault which was diagnosed at the age of 16. We tried at the highest level, from the topmost coaches, like from Tony Roche to Bob Brett to Sven Gronefeld, to try and modify that. It was a bit too late. They said the fault that she had that needed to have been corrected before she was 14 years of age. And 16 was too late for that. And so it was a compromise. Whatever we did with the serve was a compromise.
It's very important for a sports person to have a strong support system, especially at home, and you earn the right to speak about it. Now, have you seen a lot of talent fade away because that support system was lacking in their homes? Have you seen a lot of talent go away?
Absolutely, absolutely. There's no doubt about that. The thing is that I feel in Sania's success there was destiny involved because everything fell into place. Whether it was my ability to speak the way that she understood, whether it was my wife's talents to do the things that needed to be done, whether it was my younger daughter who was ready to sacrifice for the success of her elder sister, whether it was Sania's temperament and what I had learned, what my wife had learned over the years, all fell into place for Sania's tennis, and it was. I believe it was destiny. When I watch, I've seen some talent, uh, but I'm disappointed with some of the way the parents have handled the careers. There are a lot of careers that have faded away. One, there's been too much pressure being put on the players. That's something I disagree with. It might have worked with a few top level players, but I don't believe in it. Even if it works to help them succeed in tennis, I think it leaves a mark on them as a player, on their personality, as a person. And that's something that I do not recommend. So I believe in enjoying sport as a family. I believe in learning a lot from the sport. I believe sport can be very much a part of life, should be a part of life forever, even at the age of 75. I believe sport is everything for me.
For all those parents out there who have ambitions for their children, especially in sports, what would be your advice on parenting a sports person?
I think the first thing you need to do is stop putting pressure, because I've spoken to a few players who went on to become, say, a top 200 player in the world, and they said, and I went up to them and said, "You seem to be putting a lot of pressure on yourself. Why do you do that?" And they came up to me and said that when we were very young, it was the parents who put a lot of pressure on us, and now they do not do that anymore. But we've learned to do that, and we put pressure on ourselves. So that's something that actually holds them back. It's you have to enjoy the sport to actually come out and flower in it at the highest level. And this has been a standing invitation for Sania for the last 28 years. The day she stops enjoying it, walk away, and she has never walked away.
Now, has Sania's marriage to another international sports person reduced your burden or has it doubled?
But you tell me. You tell me. Well, we've enjoyed challenges. We've enjoyed challenges. As sportsmen, you would understand that, the challenges are something we like to take on. So,
Yeah.
yes, it's a challenge. And we've done well for ourselves, and Shoaib has done well for himself, and Sania has done well for herself.
What I meant was that now Shob knows how what it takes and when to communicate what. Along those lines, has he been of help to you as well in a way?
Well, yes, I think he understands very well that if Sanya has had a bad day on court, or he has had a bad day on the cricket field, they both understand that they wouldn't be amenable to talk unnecessarily. They like to be in their own shell. And that's something that a sportsman can understand, that they need to be comfortable in their own skins on those kind of days. And that's something that probably they understand, and that really helps. But at the same time, like, the time they spend together is probably not enough, because each one is busy in their own sphere, and that's something that can get daunting at times. But under the circumstances, I think they've done really well for themselves.
Yeah, that's always a price you pay, for being involved actively in sport, and that was the top level. Now, your association obviously will continue with tennis. You got your academy going. Can you just tell us exactly what goes on in the academy?
We've got 9 hard courts. Like I said, when Sanya started out, we had to wait for a couple of hours each day to get a hold of a court which belonged to a gentleman who in his house, because he was sleeping. So that was something that always hurt me, that someone who wants to play tennis should have the facilities. And we had to go miles and miles away from our country even to try and get the best facilities and infrastructure that we needed to come up in the sport. And that was something that was very dear to me, to provide that infrastructure to the country and to my city and to our state. And that's what we try to do. It's a 12 court facility in Hyderabad, the Sania Mirza Tennis Academy, with 9 hard courts of international level. They've been made by Mahesh Bhupati's company. He was the one who made the Australian Open courts as well. So they're absolutely the same quality. And I was very particular that even if we had to spend money, extra money on that, we would give them the perfect court that you needed, which would prevent any kind of injuries that can come up with cheaper courts. It's a 4-acre facility. We have 3 clay courts as well. We have a swimming pool. We have now a residential quarters out there for players who come in for tournaments as well as for training. We have a gymnasium. So it's a complete state-of-the-art facility. And we would like to create as many international champions and players from here. I have succeeded in producing another Olympian in the form of Pratna Thombre, who partnered Sania at the Rio Olympics. And I'm very proud of that.
I'm sure that's one of the many to come from your stable. Now, as a father and as a coach, I want you to tell me what is it that you would want Sania to achieve in the near future? One wish
Well,
as a father, one wish as a coach.
As a coach, well, obviously, the only thing missing is the Olympic medal. You know, they came very close to it but missed out. But I believe in destiny again. So if she's destined, she will still win it. And apart from that, you know, I would like her to get back to the best level she possibly can. Even now, she's trying to make a point that when after marriage and after a child, life doesn't end, and maybe she may not get back to number one. But whatever she does, if she competes at the highest level, I'm very happy with that. I have very few ambitions left as far as the tennis is concerned.
I'm sure still there's a lot left for her to contribute and achieve as well. Grandson keeping you busy these days?
Absolutely. Probably the one thing I wish maybe another grandson might help.
On that note, thanks a lot, Imran. It's been fantastic having you, and thanks for being candid. And I hope you enjoyed the chat as much as I did. Wish you and Sanya and everybody else in the family the very best in the future. Take care and stay safe. For all the viewers, we'll be back next week again with another
Absolute
guest
pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Thank you very much.
For all the viewers, thank you for being with us, and we'll be back with another episode next week. And it'll be based on cricket, but not totally cricket, the science that goes behind that particular function. Uh, Stay safe, be well, and look after yourself. Good night, and I'll catch up with you in a week's time.